Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev. Today we celebrate not only the final week of October, but also the final episode of our spooky auto runner game. Now last time we started adding art to our game for our ghostly buddy, our spooky pointer, and the general background / world of our auto runner. We also worked on a second boss and made both of our bosses mortal with the addition of health bars. This is the setup for today's episode where we'll hopefully tie everything together. Today we'll actually add auto running levels that'll bridge the boss fights together. They'll include their own batch of enemies with their own unique traits, and we'll top it off with one last look at the entire project in motion, including the additions I made off video. Now I'm very excited to cap this one off, so let's get to the coding. We're jumping straight into the enemy additions, and all of their behaviors will be contained within a singular object. So we gave the object a type variable and a couple of arrays to help define sprites and movement speeds. Then in the step event, it was time to use the good old switch to give our enemies their own unique traits. Starting with the first, the evil balloon. While everything will move across the screen horizontally at their own speeds, the balloon will constantly move upwards at the same time. And our first enemy / obstacle was that easy. Speaking of which, I decided to tackle these in order of difficulty, so the candle was next. The candle simply moves from right to left, spinning as if possessed by some otherworldly spooky being of spookiness. And with that, it was time to get a bit more complicated. For the demon enemy, I wanted it to move vertically in a wave style motion. And thanks to our work on our Plants vs. Zombies remake, this was easy to pull off with a variable and a timer. This resulted in purple demons bobbing through the level, forcing the player to stay on their toes. Or ghostly tails? Anyway, that left us with our final enemy, the bomb. First, we needed a flash variable, and if said variable was active, we'd have the bomb flicker between red and white. Then a distance check was used to trigger that flash effect, which would also begin a counter to explode. And this explosion would actually be another enemy type stored in the object. Not only does the explosion destroy itself once its animation plays through, but it also doesn't move in any direction. This would result in exactly what we were after, a bomb that would trigger detonation when near enough to the ghost and create a large explosion once the detonation counter reaches 0. And together this gave us 4 distinct enemy types to avoid on our way to the bosses. Yes, they're not incredibly complicated, but handling the ghosts isn't exactly easy. Also, a number of constraints meant I didn't have time to implement every enemy idea I had. Anyway, now that our levels were working, we needed to create a system to transition us from level to boss fight and back to level to repeat the process. I decided to go with a simple timer that would run until it hit a certain limit. Once the limit is reached and all the enemies have passed, it would then transition from level to boss fight. I had specific bosses spawned at specific spots and tried to tie the entire system to a switch setup. But I had a major brain fart here and simply couldn't figure out how to properly set it up. But eventually I got it. Have the game spawn enemies during the level phase until the overall time is up. Then switch to a boss fight. After the boss is defeated, restart the level code but increase the progress by 1. This way, when the second level phase is done, the second boss is spawned. This could have definitely been done much more elegantly, but at the time I was just happy to get something working right. And now I want to try something a little different that I've never done on Let's Dev before. Here is the project from level phase 1 to the second boss fight. And while it plays out, I'll explain some of the decisions that were made, starting with the fact I did not code a health system for the ghost for the sake of this showcase. Also, for the sake of this showcase, the level phases last for about a minute. And as we finish up the first level phase, the boss is about to poof into existence. Originally, I had planned for more elaborate entrances and death animations, but time restraints forced me to cut a lot of planned content. And the first thing you'll notice is the lack of a health bar. I decided to not go with health bars and instead go with bosses literally showing how healthy they are. It felt less distracting and more organic this way. So, the first boss is a Cyclops-like creature in a glass container. Its 2 attacks are to fire these psychedelic eyeball fire things and to use its own liquid as a weapon. There's a 50-50 chance on which attack it'll use, and only the liquid attack hurts the boss. Normally I would code in some mercy code to make sure things were more fair, but again, time was an issue, a lot of which was spent on animation and finer details. And yet sadly, not everything turned out as I had hoped. You may notice that the liquid drop effect doesn't repeat properly, and I didn't have time to go back and correct it. But overall, this boss fight still came out looking pretty great, so I can't complain. Now for the boss's death, again, these were meant to be more dramatic, but I had to trim them down. So bosses just blow up and leave behind their prize, an ice cream cone. The cutscene code is sequenced similarly to the way we did the boss attacks. There are position markers the actors/objects need to hit before things continue. In this case, the sequence leads us back to the starting positions and the second level phase begins. I thought it was important that the transitions between levels and bosses were as seamless as possible. For example, fading out to set up the next level just didn't feel right. Now in the notes of enemies, a few of the others I had planned to use for the level phases were haunted chairs, paintings, mimic chests, skulls, and wisps, all of which would have had their own unique traits as well. Now as we make our way to the second boss, I'll say that this one was fun to create in a different way. The second boss is a frozen creature which bounces around the level, slowly shattering itself. Each time it hits something, shards are created and health is depleted. As the boss's health lowers, it's reflected in its sprite, slowly deteriorating. I honestly wanted to try conveying character and story through the visuals, despite this project being so short. So attention to detail was pretty necessary for these bosses. And just like that, this boss is done, offering up another ice cream cone for the little ghost. This little chase the ghost does was accidental and kind of shows that the cutscene code is waiting to continue the sequence. But once everything hits its marks, the cutscene continues as normal. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my first attempt at an auto runner with a bit of a twist. I'm actually a bit proud of this one because it started as what I would consider a bit of a failure. And sharing with you folks the progress from simple shapes and a prototype to something much more is so fun, and is one of the many reasons I love making this series. Although I was really sad that I couldn't put more time into it and, make it extra awesome. Still though, I'm more than happy with the end results. Though I won't lie, I do wonder what I could have accomplished if I weren't under so many constrictions. Who knows, right? For now, what I do know is that this sadly brings us to the end of this project and this episode of Let's Dev. So remember that if you like this video or enjoy Let's Dev in general, be sure to hit that like button. If you aren't already subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. And as always, be sure to leave your thoughts on the project in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.